Mr. Crow. Okay.
Okay, we'll have a moment of silence for personal reflection and a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, we already did the roll call.
Yep.
Yeah.
Took care of that. We need to make an amendment to the agenda for 9.8 to approve the contract for the Big Walnut Elementary flooring.
So this was,
So moved.
Second.
so this is what I sent out to you all yesterday, replacing the flooring at Big Walnut Elementary's, in my opinion, a need. And we've got a company, we went through the Omnia co-op. We've got a company that we feel like can get the work done before the start of the school year. So that's the reason for the late addition to this.
Thank you.
Didn't want to wait till the middle of July, and it would not have gotten done by then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? You can take the vote, Darren, when you're ready.
Yes, ma'am. I'm making a note
Mhm.
for the minute. Mr. Fuji,
Here. Yes.
Mrs. Nix,
Yes.
Mrs. Graciosi,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Item number 5, superintendent's report.
Yes, got 2 items I want to share with you this morning. I'm going to invite Ms. Foreman up to give you a little bit of a recap from the trip that just took place to Panama. We had some intermediate school students attend that trip, and you will see later on the agenda, we're asking for you to approve future trips, and just wanted to kind of give you a recap of how that went.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
I go kind of back and forth. We had an absolutely wonderful time. Just as a quick review, part of the fun that I've had this year has been exploring in terms of what we're doing with learning development. K-12, obviously. Historically, there's been a lot of trips that have transpired at the high school level. Those have not previously always been board approved. However, we are trying to streamline and make sure that we have a bit of alignment and consistency on how we're presenting these things, even if it's not transpiring during the school year, such as this trip. However, the idea that if we have a teacher who's going to take a group of students, hey, we have a meeting and it's in that teacher has a meeting in their classroom and in the evening, they obviously are representing themselves as a Big Walnut teacher. So we're trying to streamline it and make sure that we have some specific components for each of those trips. In addition, we added, obviously, as you know, some trips, or I should say expanded it to middle school level. Our first trip that we went down to Panama with a specific focus on the global economy, the history of Panama, as well as Panama Canal, et cetera, and its tie-in to the rest of the world. One of the reasons that we chose that trip were the group leader, Amy Eikenberry, which she did a fantastic job with our group, because we partnered with a group from Westerville City Schools. So we had about 40 people within our group that we stayed in the instance of the middle school students. It's a bit different. There's a higher chaperone to student ratio. You don't hotel hop, you stay in the same hotel. You have a chartered bus the entire time, so you're not using public transportation, et cetera, et cetera. So there's varies from some of the high school trips, but I don't want to get too much into the weeds. So super successful trip. We had a fantastic time, and I just wanted to showcase a quick little snapshot from that trip. And you'll see there's a couple more on there in case you're wondering. The example of there's 2 for 2025. The reason of that is essentially we want to be able to start promoting that, or families who are interested
if they so need to apply for a scholarship or complete the payment plan, by approving them ahead of time, it gives them the opportunity to basically pay less versus approving them later on. Cool, thank you. Here's a quick snapshot.
Like the music.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
Tell me where the funding comes from for the scholarships.
It's within, it comes from EF within Education First in terms of they keep a bank, and depending on what financial aid needs there are, it's there.
So if there is a student who financially would be prohibited, anybody, how do you qualify for the scholarship?
Well, it depends on what, that's a tricky one, just based on the level of, you simply apply for it, I'll be honest. We also had a student, like as an example, through Westerville, who we had some anonymous donors who at the tail end, just on the level of like assisting with some luggage, yada, yada, snacks, blah, blah, blah. Typically within the group, every time I've traveled with them with this particular group, we've had anonymous donors who have jumped in and they didn't even have to complete the scholarship piece through EF. We just handled it with anonymous funds. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what is the average cost per student? I mean, I think this is wonderful. Experiential learning is the best way for a student to learn. I just have a little concern about people who may financially just would love for their child to go, but don't see any financial way that they could support that. And I would not want a student to be left out because of that. So what is the estimated average cost of this trip? I know you don't know with the upcoming, but
Panama was, well, if you actually go to Education First, and I can send you the link for all of those tours, and it goes through and itemizes out exactly the cost, but everything is included on the level of flights, the liability insurance, food, etc. Like for us, we basically, for our students, we give them a rough idea if they want to take money for souvenirs and snacks, as an example. But EF in that package, so roughly Panama was about $3,000 per student.
$3,000. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'll email all of you the links in terms of those, as well as the information about the scholarship piece.
I think you sent it when we approved the trip back for fall.
Anybody else?
Well, I think it's great. I think this was an awesome experience, looking at that one student's face just going, wow.
That was,
Really,
he was looking at that sloth. Literally, we were hiking and it was right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I think it's, once again, great. I think it's also good that you're putting this early on the agenda so far out so people can start really looking ahead.
Yeah, and again, you'll start seeing those high school trips that previously had not, I'll say all of them have been board approved, and I'll certainly let you know in terms of, hey, this is actually a new one versus, hey, this has been going on for years. It just hasn't been on the board agenda. So it might look like there's a peak, but in reality, it's just making sure that we're following some procedures and processes.
Great.
Thank you very much. The second item I would like to share with you all, Caleb Mason from our tech department is going to give a quick presentation about our upcoming website redesign. So we've been working on this for several months, and I will let Caleb take it from here.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So as Superintendent McLean alluded to, we've been working on this over the last several months because every couple of years we get the opportunity to go through and kind of change how our website looks from where it's currently at to what we want it to be. And at its core, our website is like an online central office, helping to eliminate phone calls, emails, and in-person visits to our already busy staff. So with this update, we wanted to allow community members, parents, and students to be able to more easily access information. And in doing so, we made some design changes, and these decisions were made to help things be a little bit easier when navigating. So to start, I'll give you a rough timeline of this project. We started in January of this year with research starting at the district administration and building administration levels, and then worked with those that work on the back end on a daily basis, and then with some teachers and parents to get their feedback on what we're currently doing. Started with a questionnaire of what things we need to fix, what things could be improved, what things we're doing really, really well. And then after that came mood boarding and design, which mood boarding is essentially looking at what everyone else is doing, seeing what things we like about their websites and what things we don't like, and then either adding those or eliminating those ideas from our design. And then we go into the design process with our designer, Claire. And she took all of the elements that we said, we want these, we don't want these, and put them into a draft design. And then from there, we started to work on the copy, which is the text that goes into everything, and then the wireframes, which is basically like a site map before the website's built. Now that's a little bit easier for us because we're not adding or removing a whole lot of pages. We may just be moving some stuff around. And then that leads us to essentially where we are today. We're kind of in the middle of full mock-ups in development. So we do have a full mock-up running, and it's currently in development. We're going page by page and making sure that the information is accurate, relevant, and timely, and in the right spot, so that way we're not confusing people. And then finally, once we launch, we're going to carry out a feedback and revision period. It will likely be longer than just the fourth quarter of 2024. We want to make sure that parents and students and community members have the opportunity to reach out to us and tell us what we're doing good or what things are missing or need to be moved to a different spot on our website. We want to make sure that this ebbs and flows with what is actually needed. So as I mentioned, we used the research phase to develop a few key aspects that we wanted to make sure we covered in our redesign. Those key goals were uniformity, availability, and quality of information. Uniformity-wise, we wanted to make sure that information, primarily the contact info, was in the same exact spot for every kind of page, whether a department or a building. In regards to information availability, it's key that we're presenting items in a way that eliminates multiple points of confusion and collects relevant information into one area for the district and one area for each building. Tying into this is the quality of information being shared and making sure that all of the information is provided the first time. So how do we do that? For uniformity, on the right-hand side of every department page, up at the top right, you will find the contact information for the key people in that department, followed by their most important items if they have any. And similarly, on the building home pages, you'll find a list of all contact information for key main office staff, and not in this picture, but inside of the tour that we'll do here in a minute, the building spotlight where they're able to put whatever they need that is timely to that time of the year. For information availability and quality, we added the improved navigation, so every building has its own main menu. It's not one main menu for the entirety of the district, while still maintaining access to the district's menu. As well as a new building showcase, like I just mentioned, and the compartmentalization you can see on the right-hand side of this image. The district forms and then the building-specific forms are nested right next to each other. That brings us to the present day. We're just a little shy of 3 weeks from launch, 3 weeks from yesterday. However, websites are not a set and forget tool, and we don't plan on stopping our improvements. From time to time, we'll be posting surveys for our community members, parents, staff, and students to provide feedback on what we're doing well, what needs improvements, and what items may need to be moved or are missing. With all that said, I want to take you on a quick little tour of our, again, this is fully in development, so some things may be broken, or you'll see a lot of sample content here and there. But this is where we are at today. So in 3 weeks, everything on this website will be matched to what is currently on our present website, but with this redesign. So when you first land on our district's homepage, it's still slowly loading. Up at the top, you'll notice our social icons. I believe our intent over the course of the next year is to improve our social media presence and making sure that we're posting items there. And then on the left-hand side, these are what's called touts. Those are currently on our website, but with pictures. These are going to ebb and flow for what things we actually need up there in the given moment. More than likely, a few of these will stay stagnant and will be the same button all throughout the year, but the lower items may change as needed. As we scroll down, you'll see our news articles, and all of these have nice little pictures in them. And then you'll see our calendar of events. Now, we only have 3 items on our calendar event currently, but there are little arrows down here in the bottom left for you to cycle through on a more full calendar. And then you have a map to us, and then our quick links to the PowerSchool Parent Portal and Schoology, and those can ebb and flow as well as a quick link to our employment. Looking at a district page, I'm going to go down here to the treasurer's office. As I mentioned, on the right-hand side, you're going to see the key people for that department. So our treasurer, Mr. Jenkins, and our assistant treasurer, Ms. Starner. And then on the left-hand side, the menu is a little easier to read. So everything that is in red is the menu for that department. Anything that's in white is outside of that department. And then, as I alluded to, again, contact information is in the same exact spot every single page. And then looking at a school, we'll go to the high school. Front and center, or front and a little off center, is all the contact information for the main office. And then they also have their own specific menu. So these are tailored to each building's need. So in the high school, you have all these clubs and activities, and I'm going to say that is going to continue to grow. So it may end up becoming its own button up at the top, but we have student resources and family info, as well as an About Us section. And then the showcase that the building will take care of putting relevant and timely information, as well as their calendar events and their news. Now with the contact info, we brought back our staff directory, but we did it a little bit different this time go around. So instead of just having a plain text email, you click on the link and then it will you type in your email address and it'll send you a link to be able to reach out to a staff member. It just keeps our staff a little safer from spam, and helps protect some of the information that comes in and goes out. So with that, I'll go back here. I do want to give a quick thank you to some of our BWLS staff, as well as the staff over at Link, who is our CMS provider. So our BWLS staff,
You may want to say
McLean,
what CMS means.
Content Management System, my apologies. Our Superintendent McLean, Assistant Superintendent Foreman, and our Technology Director, Wayne Thompson, as well as our entire admin team and the secretaries. They really helped out a lot during research. And then the Link staff, Claire Steindorf, our web designer, Christian Kelly, our implementation specialist, Corey Brown, our web developer, and finally Melissa Ora Hood, our director of client support. We have an email chain of about 200 emails over the course of the last 6 months, going back and forth on different elements. Some minute, some completely changing the entire look and feel of the entire website. But just wanted to give them a special shout out and a thank you. With that, does anyone have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
That's a wonderful display you have, and I'm excited about the change. One of the things that I have heard pretty consistently is that it's not kept up to date. Is there going to be someone who is that's going to be their job? I mean, when I first came on the board office was still listed as Ballman Street. So, little details like that, I'm sure you're going to clean up before you launch this.
Correct. So currently we're working through every single page and making sure that everything is accurate. If it's something that I can fix, I go in and fix it, or if it's something that someone else would be better suited fixing, I send it to them and they let me know what revisions they may have to it. But as I alluded to, we want to send out surveys to parents and community members to let us know what we're doing good and what we're not.
Okay.
So that way we can make those changes, because we don't know what we don't know.
Absolutely.
And if, I mean, we have over 500 pages on our website. It's very hard and time consuming to go one by one and make sure
I
that
understand
everything
that.
is accurate.
And Mrs. Nix, that'll also be part of the responsibility of the communication specialist that's on the agenda here later today, this morning.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a few. Before you even think about the analytics, or I'm sorry, the survey to the families, I assume that there's some analytics that are kept and that you have access to in terms of the most frequented pages.
There are, and we are using that to focus our spotlights. So for the building pages, based on where people are going once they hit a building page, those are going to be the top 3.
So those are those quote unquote touts that you talked about on the left-hand side.
Correct.
My next question has to do with, and I appreciated seeing the social media components there. Websites are no longer the one-stop shop. It isn't necessary that somebody is driven to a website specifically in order to do different things anymore. So my curiosity in this realm is really about how you will incorporate kind of what is the digital front door website, and wherever somebody accesses our name and how it's driven into the website or into whatever other platform, how will you monitor what other content may be out there? So if somebody Googles our name and takes us to the website or to a social media page, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever it is, TikTok, heaven forbid, how does that get driven to the website?
So depending on where they're coming from, and if I'm understanding you correctly, I may be completely off, so please stop me if I'm wrong. So whenever someone goes to like Facebook, for example, and they
Oh
click
yeah, there's
on our,
another one.
Yeah, they click on our website link in Facebook. It has a tag on it that will pull that we had one visitor from Facebook.
So you have analytics on that as well?
Correct. So we have analytics across the board.
But when someone accesses our quote unquote digital front door from another location, you can say what locations are most frequently visited or how someone enters our digital site.
To some extent, yes.
I'd be
We've
curious
only
to
been
know that.
collecting for about 6 months since.
So I think 6 months would be so pretty large amount of data that I would be interested in seeing. Would you share that with me, please?
Yes, I will.
The other question / comment that I have is, while I certainly am proud of our facilities, I would prefer to see student faces or kind of what we do as our core business being teacher-student relationships and versus seeing the facilities on the front page.
We just put that there as a
As a
placeholder for
Got
the
it. So
time being.
So I'm just giving my comment in terms of the placeholder that's been shared.
Yeah. So the current slideshow that is on our current homepage will
Yes.
be the same slideshow.
Okay.
Now those will be updated as time goes on as we get more pictures of students and staff.
And that was going to be my comment in response to Mrs. Nix. I too agree that once it's up and running, it's a great thing, but having the content be refreshed is always and actually I would say with those pictures, it has been. I've been very pleased with seeing how up to date those are usually kept. The data or the information that maybe undergirds that, not so much, but the pictures certainly have been very well done. Thank you. I appreciate this presentation.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
And other than the time that our staff has spent on this, there's been no cost to the district for this redesign.
Thank you.
Thanks, Caleb. And then the last item I have for my superintendent's report is I just wanted to give you an update on our preschool early learning center. We just received a 5-star rating
Yay.
for Step Up to Quality, so I want to make sure I thank Katie Yeager for her work leading that building this year, as well as the staff at the ELC for the work that needed to be put into that. Also want to thank Ms. Foreman and Mr. Robertson for their work on that as well. So with that, that concludes my superintendent's report.
Item number 6, treasurer.
Yeah, just as far as housekeeping, just so everyone understands what has happened so far this morning, I entered Mr. Crowell's arrival at 9:05, so it'll be reflected on the minutes. And we have amended the agenda and approved the amendment of 9.8, the BWE flooring contract. Now, as far as agenda items, obviously, and most people are aware that June and July are the busiest times of the year in the treasurer's office. You have two action items on the agenda this morning. The first is to approve amended appropriations. The total appropriations that we will have spent for FY23, which will end actually tomorrow, is $66.1 million. The temporary appropriations that we will be asking you to approve for FY24, which begins actually July 1st, is $69.8 million. We will have a permanent appropriations measure approved at the September meeting. I will tell you, and I need to commend our office staff, and Mrs. Starner particularly. I've been around schools a long time, and this is the first district that when we adopt a temporary appropriations measure, it is, for all intents and purposes, pretty much permanent. The only thing that will be adjusted, we know will be adjusted by September, are our federal programs that we have to complete our planning on. Everything else is linked back to our 5-year forecast update, which you all approved in May. I will say the districts that I've been working in over my career typically will have a temporary appropriations measure at this time of the year of either 50% of the previous year or 75% of the previous year. It's much more vague than this one. So it quite honestly, you need to be happy and proud of not necessarily me, but the treasurer's office, because that's very commendable to have that kind of handle on what our expenditures will be for the upcoming year. The last thing that I will say with regard to the amendment that we put on the agenda, and that is the BWE flooring, even though the contract amount is quite substantial, it has been and is included in the appropriations for the upcoming year, so it's already been accounted for. So that while it's a significant amount of money, it's been accounted for, and I hope that doesn't cause anyone any concern with regard to approving the appropriations measure. So that's all I have.
Public records requests? Earlier this month till now?
None. We haven't had any. Well, I take that back. We've had.
I was going to say, wait a second.
We had one. You're gonna jinx me, Mr. Fuji.
My goal in life.
We have one, and that will be completed by the end of the day today. It was how do I want to say this? It had nothing to do with the operation of the district, except that it was a vendor asking about other competitors who had submitted proposals, and the proposal rubric that we went with in awarding the contract to another vendor. So that will be that information will go out this afternoon when this board meeting's over.
Thank you. And also commendations to your office, as you kind of stated earlier.
And that takes us to item number 7, board members' items of interest. We'll start on the right. Nothing.
I would like to thank I would like to thank Megan Foreman, Jamie, RTI specialist, and Mr. Roberts for the work that they're doing with our curriculum. And they had a great, we had a very nice meeting this week going over all of our programs and the overview was very beneficial for Alice and myself. And I think, Ryan, you might talk about a little more, or Megan, in detail, but the hard work that you're doing to look for the value for the children and for the teachers to be able to work with these programs and get our best, bang for the buck, and education for the children, and constantly revamping. So I think it's going to be exciting to see all this with Mr. Roberts. And Alice, you were there too, so you might
Yeah.
have input later.
I will.
I am finished. Thank you, everyone.
That'll
Yes.
take us to Alice.
Thank you. It was very informative, and one of the things that was the most interesting to me were the points that have been missing in our system. And I applaud our new administration for coming in and recognizing this. It's been so important. Our reading scores have been low, and our early learning center was operating without a curriculum. And to maintain the 5-star, you have to prove that you have a curriculum. So they have adopted the high scope for early childhood. And I anticipate we're going to start seeing some very improved scores on our reading. And I applaud the teachers. I know it's probably been very frustrating not having what I call the tools you need. Having a uniform program throughout the district. We'll bring them into the intermediate school together with what I would say common learning, and that will make it, I, as a former educator, know that consistency is very important. So I would kudos to Jamie and Mike and Megan Foreman for working so hard to recognize what's been missing and to do the research necessary to bring to us the tools that the staff will need to make our students the top students.
Todd?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Just joking.
You're all joked up. And I also have nothing. That'll take us to item number 8, public participation. This is a meeting, do we have any?
No, sir, I don't have anyone that turned in anything.
Okay, well then I won't read that paragraph.
Sorry.
That'll take us to item number 9, business items. 9.1, it is recommended the board approve final amended appropriations for FY '23 to be submitted to the county auditor's office.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? When you're ready, Darren.
Mr. Crowe,
Yes?
Mr. Fuji?
Yes.
Mrs. Nix?
Yes.
Mrs. Graciosi?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Item 9.2, it is recommended the board approve the fiscal year 2024 temporary appropriation to be filed with the county auditor's office.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion?
I would like to thank Mr. Jenkins and his office for the diligent work that they have been doing. And I am very happy with their office.
Mr. Fuji?
Yes.
Mrs. Nix?
Yes.
Mrs. Graciosi?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes. 9.3, it is recommended the board approve the agreement between Professional Speech Services Incorporated and Big One Local School.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? When you're ready, Darren.
Mrs. Nix?
Yes.
Mrs. Graciosi?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Mr. Fuji?
Yes.
Item 9.4, it is recommended the board approve the attached instruction material.
So move.
Second. Give.
Any discussion?
I have a quick question about this.
Yeah.
So this is really the technology platforms utilized for instructional purposes from, it says BW Oh no, I read it wrong. BW Instructional Resources, not BWIS. It's all of the technology.
That's correct. So this is one of those, we're trying to clean up
Consistent.
the process and make sure the board is approving curriculum, materials, and items. So this is something that would not have been done in the past. So all of these items are items that either have been used or are potentially new, but are under the $50,000 threshold. Anything above $50,000
We have to
is
approve.
going to be a separate item for you to approve, and then that will be transferred onto the spreadsheet. So moving forward, I envision this kind of to be similar, like the staffing plan as it's updated, instead of just having you approve onesies. It'll be the whole spreadsheet with additions, and we'll designate what's new and when that document was updated. So this has been a group effort to get us to this point. And going back to the preschool, I failed to mention two people. Rosalind Scott, our Director of Student Services, and Amy Keep have been instrumental not only in that preschool, but it's really been a team effort as we work to see what are our needs from an instructional assessment standpoint, curriculum and material standpoint. So wanted to make sure I mentioned that as well.
I would like to make a comment about the early learning. I think it's important for people to understand that we have to comply with the ODJFS and the ODE. So there are two governing agencies that tell us what we have to have and what we need to do.
Yes, preschool is a complicated
Yes.
beast.
So on this sheet you're asking for approval from today, I recognize everything. There's a couple that I don't, and I wonder if they're either name changes or it's new instructional material for us. Can you highlight for me the things that you think would be new coming in? You've talked for a while about consistency and step up to writing. That was one of your early observations. I'm not familiar with IXL. Is that Alex?
No, IXL is from, you would recognize the old Study Island.
Oh.
It's completely different company, but that would be my easiest comparison to
What this
students
is?
use it and the use of it.
So is this, but IXL itself is new?
No, I believe IXL has been in the district for a while now. It's just not been anything that you all have approved as an instructional material.
And then the Amplify and M-Class.
So that was the materials that you approved a couple months ago. That's the
For
new
kindergarten
assessment.
screening.
That's going to be kindergarten through third grade.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I do want to just mention these, Alice, we had a meeting with Alice, Mrs. Foreman, Jamie, and a few other people in the middle of the winter last year or spring, and they started talking about all these programs, getting us a little more literate with what you're talking about. Mr. Fuji has experience with this. And then on Tuesday, we went item by item, and they explained all the programs to us, how they're maybe phasing some out, phasing some in, why they're better, how we can streamline this, and it just plays on to what Alice had said earlier. So I want to thank the administration for their transparency and involving Alice and I with the curriculum.
Any other discussion?
Mrs. Graciosi,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Crowe,
Yes.
Mr. Fuji,
Yes.
Mrs. Nix.
Yes.
I believe that takes us to item number 9.5. It is recommended the board approve the purchase of iReady instructional material from Curriculum Associates.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
So this one is added, the iReady.
Yeah, this is a diagnostic as well as an instructional resource that will be used primarily at kindergarten through fourth grade level. And again, that's an example of, it's not on the spreadsheet yet, but if approved, it will be added to the spreadsheet next month. It'll be added to the spreadsheet today, but for your information next month.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Crowe,
Yes.
Mr. Fuji,
Yes.
Mrs. Nix.
Yes.
Mrs. Graciosi.
Yes.
Item number 9.6, it is recommended the board approve the license and subscription for Schoology through Power School.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Schoology serves two purposes. It has served two purposes in the past. One is a learning management system or platform. So essentially, it allows the teachers to post assignments. It allows students to access that and interact. In my opinion, that's the primary purpose of Schoology. It also has the ability to serve as a communication tool. It's my understanding in the past that that became the information or communication tool of choice for the district, and feedback from not only families but my own personal uses. It is not the most user-friendly for that. Maybe that's the understatement of the day. But that is, I don't believe that was Schoology's intended purpose when they created the platform. It was the driving force of that tool is not to be the communication, or at least from our standpoint, that is not the primary purpose. It's more of a secondary benefit. This past year, we kind of went away from using Schoology as our only means of communication. While we still did share information on Schoology, we also sent it out via district email, text alerts, if it was appropriate, on our Facebook page. So families were able to get information by other means, not being forced just to go to Schoology. So it is a necessary tool. It's an important tool, I believe, a necessary tool for our teachers and students from the learning management standpoint, more so than it is from a district communication standpoint.
I have one comment. One of the things that has been expressed is the teachers that don't put information on there, or the information is not done in a timely manner. Is this going to be something that we're going to say, you know, for communicating with the parent, it's important that you put your information up there and you put it up there in a timely manner? And what is the process going to look like?
Some of the concerns that I received about staff members not putting items up there was the items that weren't being put up there. And with copyright laws in effect, there are items that teachers can't put on Schoology. They can't put on the webpage. So that was a complaint from a few people. I wouldn't say a large number, but a few people expressed concern that they wanted to be able to see every worksheet or every video, such like things of that nature. We can make those things available, and we have made those things available, but we can't violate copyright by posting it on a Schoology or on a teacher webpage or things like that. I think it is a reasonable expectation, and it is my understanding that I think our teachers are doing a good job of posting, here are the assignments that are due, here are the assessments that are coming up, and things of that nature. I think that's reasonable. To ask them to post every worksheet, I don't think is allowable. And going away from Schoology doesn't fix that problem.
Right. These particular comments were not in reference to copyright. I mean, it was in reference to getting assignment notices to later than what had been promised, and just general information about what the class was doing.
And that we had a discussion along those lines yesterday in our admin meeting, talking about how we can better educate parents on what tools that we have available so that they can be informed. I believe if a teacher is just blatantly not doing this, I would ask that community member to, first reach out to the teacher, and if that doesn't improve, to reach out to the building principal, because again, we don't want anyone to just not informing families of what's going on.
Thank you.
I'm a little confused on the copyright. Are you saying that there's material that the teacher brings in that we haven't subscribed to? Because if we're subscribing to, it should give us the legal right to post it on Schoology.
My understanding is it can be posted on Schoology for the student, but it can't be posted to where the general public could access that worksheet. So that if I'm a teacher in Pittsburgh and I can access the Big Walnut Schoology page and I'm teaching US history and my school is not paying for the worksheets, well, I can go to Big Walnut Schoology page and download them and use them. I believe that would be the copyright violation.
How would they get on our Schoology? I mean, I've had parents say they have a hard time getting on it.
I don't know enough to
It's-
answer
Okay.
that question right
But
now.
it was just a general question. It just confused me that if we just approved subscriptions.
Right.
So there's a difference between using IXL and clicking on that website, which is password protected. And if I've got a book of work, I'm going back to my US history days, and I've got a worksheet for chapter 1, section 2, me posting a digital copy of that worksheet would be a copyright violation.
Which would be the teacher not using the subscription
Correct,
material. That was my question.
correct.
If that was a concern, okay. Any other questions? When you're ready, Darren.
Mr. Crowe,
Yes.
Mr. Fuji? Mrs. Nix?
Yes.
Mrs. Graciosi?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
9.7 is recommended the board approve the following extended overnight field trips. Grades 5 through 8, Italy, Belize, and London.
So moved, and I want to go.
Sign me up.
One comment. Dig into the document and see the chaperone or the staff member responsible. So from both Ms. Eikenberry and Ms. Seclair, I say thank you, but I'd like to see maybe those names associated with on the agenda items. Thank you. Excuse me.
Any other comments or questions? Lucky kids, when you're ready.
Mr. Fuji?
Yes.
Mrs. Nix?
Yes.
Mrs. Graciosi?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes. 9.8, Big Walnut, or BWE flooring contract.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, questions?
Mr. McLean, we had a discussion earlier about this, and you had said you were using the, not the consortium or the.
Omnia, correct.
You are using Meta Collective.
Yes, we're using that co-op, so we've
Co-op.
met the requirements to proceed.
Thank you.
And that satisfies the dollar limit for the bid.
Yes. And if anyone's been in BWE lately, it's long overdue for some new flooring.
It was overdue 10 years ago.
Yes.
What was done in the gym last year?
At BWE,
Oh, that was the roof.
yeah, that
contract.
was the damage from the roof.
Mhm.
So this is not the gym flooring. This is for the
Classroom.
classrooms, hallway spaces, common spaces. The flooring will be similar to what is in the high school and the middle school.
Is that a carpet replacement?
We will be removing carpet and replacing with vinyl, I believe.
It's only about 30 years overdue.
Yeah, get the mold out.
They should never had carpet in there to start with. Whenever you're ready, Darren.
Mrs. Nix?
Yes.
Mrs. Graciosi?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Mr. Fuji?
Yes.
Item 10, human resources. All HR items are pending receipt of successful background checks, verification of experience, and completion of all necessary documentation. Item 10.1 is recommended the board approve the following certified contracts for the 23-24 school year. And Brianna Lawless, Sarah Cleghorn, and Whitney Stallnaker.
So moved.
Second.
Oops.
Discussion, comments? When you're ready.
Mrs. Graciosi?
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Crow,
Yes.
Mr. Fuji,
Yes.
Mrs. Nix.
Yes.
10.2, it is recommended the board approve the following resignations. Jennifer Barr at GRE, Amanda Isgonitis at BWHS, Andrew Jados at Big One High School, and Lindsay Kaiser at BWE,
There's one more.
and Jessica Shelton at PRE.
So moved.
Second.
This is discussion, comments.
I just want to thank Mr. Jadis, served as the high school principal for the past 8 years. That is one job that I've never had, and one job that I'm not anxiously trying to check off my bucket list of educational positions. So being a high school principal is difficult, and appreciate all the time that he put in, and wish him the best of luck as he takes on his next challenge.
And I might add, as the reader of this, that there were some of those subject personnel that are pending other assignments.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Crow,
Abstain.
Mr. Fuji,
Yes.
Mrs. Nix.
Yes.
Mrs. Graciosi.
Yes.
10.3, it is recommended the board approve the following classified contracts for the 23-24 school year. Jennifer Barr at Big One High School, Amanda Isgonitis at Big One High School, and Charles Hurst,
So moved.
bus aide.
Second.
Discussion, comments?
I marked these on your agendas, but the halftime guidance secretary should have been an asterisk. This was the original ad from the fall of 2022
As a new position,
as an additional
created
position.
position.
Correct.
Mr. Crow,
Abstain.
Mr. Fuji,
Yes.
Mrs. Nix.
Yes.
Mrs. Graciosi,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
10.4, it is recommended the board approve the following administrative contracts effective beginning the 23-24 school year. Jeffrey Peterby, communication specialist. Jessica Shelton, principal at the ELC.
So moved.
Second.
And the communication specialist
Yes.
also is a,
that
newly-
was
that's
the
not a
ad.
newly created position though, is it?
So no, it's changed. That there was a communications person here up until the spring of 2022, I believe. Went away this past year, but it was on the staffing plan that you all approved, I believe, last month or previously. Excited about Jeffrey joining us. He's coming from the TV news industry. He's an Ohio Northern graduate.
Go
Worked
Polar
in
Bears.
Go Polar Bears. Worked up in Toledo and then has worked in the Columbus market for several years, and excited about him joining our team and improving our communication presence here in the district. Mrs. Shelton has worked in the district for about 20 years, is an intervention specialist. She was working on her administrative license while I was the principal at BWI. So I know she is very excited about this opportunity, and I'm excited about what she's going to be able to do for not only the ELC, but some of our specialized learning centers around the district.
Mr. Fuji,
Yes.
Mrs. Nix.
Yes.
Mrs. Graciosi,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Crow.
Yes. Item 11, scheduling of the next board meeting. The next regularly scheduled meeting will be July the 20th at 6:30 here, and streaming will be made available. Item 12, executive session. It is recommended the board enter executive session as permitted by ORC Section 121.22 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes, consider the employment of a public employee or official, and I would add safety to that as well.
So moved.
Second? Jump in there faster, Todd.